Satya Lila is a sacred sexuality educator, transformational coach, and spiritual guide with over 30 years of experience. She's led hundreds of workshops across the US and Japan and facilitated over 15,000 private sessions, helping individuals and couples reconnect with their divine erotic energy. Through her sexual community programs, Satya guides clients to reclaim their sexual vitality, deepen intimacy, and experience sexuality as a sacred, ecstatic, and healing force. Her personal journey, from early relational challenges to profound spiritual awakening, infuses her work with authenticity, compassion, and transformative power. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today from the beautiful California. Secondly, I have to say this is one conversation I've been really looking forward to. Not that I don't look forward to all of them. This one's felt like it's been a little bit of time coming. It's been out there. I've been sort of looking at what you do, and I said just before we started recording, I'm just fascinated. Really, I'm just really curious by what you're doing, and hopefully we can scrape the surface a little bit and understand a bit more about you and the life you're leading.
Thank you.
So I guess the first place to start really is if you could share some insights and thoughts on your early life and early relationships. How did they guide your experience to where you are today? Can you see a connection between the person you were, I don't know, in your formative years, your teens, and then the person you are today?
Yes, I have had quite a journey. I was fortunate enough to be raised by a mother who was not shaming about sexuality. And so I escaped a lot of that cultural repression and shame. Really, she was quite healthy in the ways that she interacted with me about that. And so I was blessed in that way. And I did have some challenges in my earlier life in relationships, though, particularly with one relationship. I was with a man that was intimidated by my sexual energy. And he told me like 20 years later that he found out that he had been sexually abused as a child, and that was the source of that discomfort. But at the time, neither of us knew that. And so he was blaming me for it. He was saying I was too much, I was too big, I was abandoning him. And so I really wanted to make this relationship work. So I decided in a burst of codependency to see if I could dampen my relationship, my energy down a little bit so I wouldn't intimidate him so much. And that was not a really good decision on my part, but it I did what I did. So what happened was dampening your sexual energy isn't very selective. It's kind of like a switch got flipped, and we were just like, I never ever connecting sexually or any other way really, that for that matter. And my sexual energy got very flattened, and I was really unhappy. Because that sexual energy, it helps keep you flowing, helps keep you moving and connected with the flow of the universe. And I was disconnected. And so I was in therapy, and my therapist recommended that we do a sacred sexuality workshop. And I got him to agree to go. And we went there, and there was this moment of connection. And for me, being there was like this like experience of coming home. It was something, it felt like something I knew from past lives, but anyway, it felt completely natural and normal and celebratory to me to be combining spirituality and sexuality. And he and I had, it was a weekend workshop. We had a sweet, intimate connection. And I was like, oh, yay, everything's fixed. Yay. But that was not the case.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to go back to other workshops. And we just kind of limped along for another year. And then we very mutually decided to separate. We were both quite relieved to not be in that struggle anymore. And it was a very loving and amicable separation. It was just we weren't right for each other, and we both recognized that.
Mm.
So I soon after that, I connected with a man that was, those rebound kind of relationships. It's like, yay, I'm single again. Woo, and I connected with somebody like that. And I could tell we had dated for maybe a month or so, and I could tell we were starting to head towards intimacy. And I remember thinking about it and just being so afraid. Which was I never in my life been afraid of being sexual with someone before, but I was afraid I wouldn't remember how my body wouldn't work anymore. I wouldn't have an orgasm, all these concerns. And I decided, as I was in this like nervous anticipation, I decided I was going to go back to those workshops myself. Even though I didn't have a partner, I was just so drawn to it that I went and I started doing the workshops as a single person. And they helped me open up my sexuality again, and even more than before. It helped me learn to spread energy all throughout my body instead of having it just be localized in my pelvis. And I also started meeting partners who were celebrating my sexual energy and instead of saying you're too much, they were saying, is there more? And that was that was so healing for me to hear something like that. And I have since that time, I've been with several different partners for different reasons, and each of them has been honoring of my sexual energy and celebratory and worshiping the goddess through my body, and which is a feature of sacred sexuality. And I have, I'm 70 years old now, and been with a partner now for 11 years, and he's also 70, and we have this beautiful, lovely, sensual, sexual, spiritual connection that we nurture and honor. And I'm still having a great deal of fun, just in a way that opens up my energy, my spirituality, and my aliveness. So it's been quite a journey, and it's been a really fun journey, except for that little dip there that was not so fun that I just described. But that's what inspires me to share this work with other people, is what it did for me, the help in opening up after that relationship where I had shut down so drastically. It helped me so much, and I love helping other people open up. So I when I speak of that, I think of a woman who came to work with me after a divorce, and she was kind of shut down, similar to me, and she became a force of nature. She's this fiery, big energy, wonderful woman, and she worked with me probably 20 or 25 years ago, and she's still in this big energy, lusty, zesty, full of life. She like I said, she's like a force of nature. She's so beautiful, and she's with a partner who celebrates her and encourages that big energy. So
It's
so
funny, isn't
she's
it?
one that. Go ahead.
It's funny, isn't it? 'Cause a lot of people I talk to, they talk about how little little education they get around, and not
Yeah,
even sexuality, so with no education around intimacy. And
yeah,
in sexual education in the UK, and I know in the US it's probably not too dissimilar. It talks about we talk about safe sex, sexually transmitted diseases, and there's a little bit about consent, which is great.
mhm,
That's pretty much it. There's
mhm,
and then people, and then from the age of when people are very very young, and they when they're sort of 2 and 3 and 4 years old, we have a habit of shoving our hands down our pants and just playing around with what's there, really. And I think we often get our hands slapped away and told it's dirty, and don't
yeah,
do that. And even when we get older,
yeah,
we're told, you shouldn't do that. You go blind if you keep doing that.
right.
And we never. And I talked to a somatic coach a few months ago, and she was saying, have you ever just spent an hour or two exploring your own body and the sensations that you like? And I honestly couldn't say yes. I said, well, no. And,
Mhm,
and he said, well, if you don't understand your own body and what feels nice, and whether the inside of your wrist feels nice or your earlobes feel nice, how on earth can you ask what you want? I think, okay, yeah, but I think,
yeah,
like you said, a lot of people are. It's not necessarily repressed. I think they just perhaps are nervous to truly explore, really. And you sort of had it sounds like you had the fairly open childhood and upbringing, and then suddenly you're in a relationship where it pulls you back down. And it must have been very very draining. And I could hear in your voice when you're talking about it how draining it must have been. But then to
mhm.
encounter the courses and the workshops you went on, so how would you define sacred sexuality? What makes it different from other maybe ways of talking about sex and sex education?
Well, sacred sexuality is an integration of uh, pleasure and the body and sexuality and spirituality
Mhm.
in its highest form. It's the sexual energy acts like a catalyst to like build the fire. Like if you think of a rocket, and as a rocket takes off, there's this big fire under it that propels it upward.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful analogy for sacred sexuality. The sexuality, the sexual energy is the fire that propels us upward. There's teachings in um, yoga and tantra that talk about the different energy centers along the spine, and the ones that are like at the top of the head are the ones that connect us with spirit, with source energy, where we come from,
Mhm.
where we return to. And there are practices that help to um, spread the sexual energy up the spine instead of keeping it localized in the pelvis. And as it goes up the spine, it activates the other energy centers, the heart center where intimacy and love and connection lives, and the crown where we're connected in with the oneness, the divine, the luminous emptiness. There's many words for the same thing. Some people call it God. I call it source energy because
Mhm.
I think that's where it's our source. It's what we came from. It's what's that's still inside of us. And the sexual energy kind of whoosh, moves up and spreads out and opens up the crown. You can think of the top of the head like branches of a tree connecting out into source energy. And so that's a really essential part of it, and a happy byproduct. And it's something that actually entices people to get into exploring it at all, is that it increases your pleasure. If you think about the pelvis being a holder, like a cauldron for the sexual energy, the pelvis is only so big, right? But if you learn to relax and let the energy move through your whole body, then the pleasure is in your whole body. Your whole body is involved in orgasmic energy, ripples of orgasmic energy, or, moving through your body. And that's pretty enticing. It's pretty motivating.
Is it and I'm going to use the wrong words, and forgive my
That's
naivety.
okay.
Is it kind of scary when it sort of first happens? Because we're so used to it being a very localized activity. So when you feel it sort of spreading through your body, does it?
It depends on what your history is.
Okay.
For me, it was joyous because I hadn't had a lot of wounding. If you've had wounding, in which can come in many different forms, sexual abuse is the most extreme form, but even just being shamed, it can touch off things, body memories that are stored in your body. And so it's useful, if you are in that situation, to work with someone who understands how to work with people who have trauma of whatever variety it might be. Because the energy is a healing energy in itself, but it really helps to have a holder, a person who holds you, who provides the container for healing. If you are in that situation where you've had some wounding, it could be scary to do it on your own. I would recommend working with someone who's not afraid of sexual energy, doesn't feel shame about it, and understands the process of body memories being triggered, because that does happen. But it also, on the other side, when that energy starts moving, it provides a healing energy. If you do have the right container to be held in it, that energy itself is healing, and your attitude of embracing it and accepting it is also healing. So it is very possible to heal. I've seen many people do that, and it's possible to do that energy without being explicitly sexual. It just through breath and movement, you can activate that energy and circulate it through up your spine, like I was speaking of. And a lot of times that's a good way to start, because you can keep your clothes on. You don't have to be really sexual. You don't have to deal with all that fraught situation. And that's a really good place to start, because just the energy itself moving is a catalyst for healing to start happening. And it doesn't have.
It feels almost like a sort of, I guess, a mental acupressure, internal massage, because all of us carry blockages in our bodies, I guess, and like I say, a lot of people that have been through it might not have been traumas are recognized at the time, but still something that somebody said once, something that somebody
Yes.
did once, something that you were you made you feel embarrassed about or ashamed about. I
Yeah.
totally believe that your body holds on to those things. So I think
Mhm.
it must be very positive in terms of a very positive emotion to suddenly feel all of those pathways in our body that naturally should be open, they've had all these little blockages for so long, just suddenly to feel them sort of broken through, and it's like, gosh, this is what it should feel like. It must be
Exactly.
a
Yeah,
wonderful sensation.
it is. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you went from going to the workshops and finding yourself again, I guess, and allowing yourself to be the person that you were always supposed to be, I'm guessing by the sort of person that I can already feel you are, you wanted to, for want of a better phrase, share the love, really. So how did you come up with the sexual communion program? What is it all about, and how did you become the person that has helped so many people?
Well, I was already a healer when I first started going to the workshops. I was a chiropractor, and I soon decided that teaching sacred sexuality was much more my calling than chiropractic.
Yeah.
So I started transitioning. I did first started assisting the teacher in the workshops that I had been taking. And then I did an apprenticeship program that was given by a couple who were therapists who taught about how to work with the emotions that come up with sexuality. And then I just started teaching. I started teaching just women because I felt more comfortable doing that. And then I moved into teaching men and women groups and individuals. When I was a chiropractor, I had already been doing pelvic healing work where I worked with the muscles of the pelvis internally and worked with the stored emotions and energy there. So I was already doing that even as a chiropractor. So it just kind of gradually evolved. There's been different forms at different times. The latest, um, the latest big shift happened about maybe 6 or so years ago. I was with my current partner, and as I mentioned, we were getting a little bit older, and even then, and um, I had progressed in my spiritual practice, my personal practice, so much that I had gotten really, really sensitive. And the things that were working for us stopped working for me. I was like, oh, that's too much. Don't come in too quick. I and it was bewildering to both of us because we had this beautiful, lusty, joyous sexual connection, and then all of a sudden I was just like, that's too. I was really sensitive, and we went through this cycle of starting to connect and then breaking apart. And I remember one day where we had gone through that again, and we kind of breaking apart. I don't mean breaking up. I just mean giving up on connecting sexually, and there we did that, and I I was lying there on the bed, and he was sitting on the side of the bed, and he was all drooped. you know, his face was long. He looked so sad, and my heart just broke looking at him because I sex was our love language. Sex was our joyous place. It was the glue that held us together, and I missed it And I know he missed it too. And at that moment, I decided I'm going to figure out how to connect with him now. I'm going to pull in all my tools. And I did. I mean, I had a lot of tools. I'd already
Mm.
been teaching for 25 years at that point. And so I started looking at what is happening here, and I started exploring sexual energetics.
Mhm.
And that's where the sexual communion program came from, is working with the energy, um, ener- the energy bodies connecting.
Mhm.
And that can happen even if you're this far apart or this far apart, and that was the key for us, is that we needed to start connecting when we were energetically, when we were 2 or 3 feet apart, and come together really, really slowly, because I felt like my whole skin was covered with these little satellite dishes that they all needed to go,
Yeah.
like that. And it took it. If he got close too fast, I couldn't align with
Mm.
his energy and be receiving it. But if he gave me enough space and time, then I could align, and I could meet and connect with him, and we could have a beautiful connection. So the connection got more and more energetically subtle. And there's still plenty of times where we're physical now, but the
Mhm.
energetic connection has to come first
Yeah.
before I am able to really connect with him. And now he understands that, and I understand it. It took a lot of self-awareness and observation to figure that out, and notice, oh, what happened? Oh, I couldn't move back up a little bit. There was a lot of back up a little bit and come in again, and experimenting and
Yeah.
communication and um, it worked. I mean, we have the most beautiful sexual connection. It just lights me up. It makes me happy. It makes everything flow between us so much better. It's just this celebratory, uh, and it's taken both of us to an amazing spiritual connection as well. Like I'll give you an example of that. There was a time when he was pleasuring me, and I was just kind of lying back and receiving, and I got the inspiration to imagine my yoni as a cosmic portal. Yoni is a Sanskrit word that means vulva or vagina. It means literally sacred space. And that's the one way sacred sexuality intersects. It's the honoring of the genitals as sacred. So anyway, I imagined I started just focusing on what would it feel like for my yoni to be a portal. And the next thing I knew, I went into a vision, and the vision was a black background with golden light outline of a yoni shape with rays of golden light coming off from that. And I was in that for, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or a minute or so. It's hard to time
Mm.
stuff like that. And then I just went, and I went into the light. I went into source energy. I went into, the yogis call it samadhi. It was this field of luminous emptiness, of infinite light and love, and um, it was like, oh my God, it was a glimpse of enlightenment, and it was just a glimpse. It lasted for a few moments, maybe a minute or two, but those glimpses, you keep getting those glimpses, and it becomes more and more real, you know. that was a particularly
Amazing.
impactful experience. But
Mm.
I've had a lot of experience like that where um, I see his the Sanskrit word for penis is lingam, which means wand of light, and I worship his lingam as a vehicle for light being transmitted into me, wherever. If it, sometimes he'll just place it on my heart, and I'll just fill my heart up with light, or or wherever it is. It's like this. It's like the light comes in and down his spine, and it funnels out his body through his lingam, through the wand of light. And I've had incredible visions of light as he's channeling light into me. Even when I don't know that's what he's intending, I can feel it. He says I react when he does it, even if I don't know that that's what he's intending. He'll give me like a little burst, and I'll go, woo.
It feels very different. I think when you, I love the, I'm going to use those words now. I love the yoni and the lingam in terms of, yeah, it almost, and hopefully I explain this what I'm thinking. It almost takes them away from being almost this silly sort of simple sexual organs and makes them into something so different. So imagine that. Imagine the bringer of light. I mean, that has so many spiritual, religious, life-affirming, life-giving connotations. And then
Yes.
and then bringing light to a sort of sacred space. I mean, you can't get more more spiritual and more meaningful, and no matter what your religious persuasion or not at all. I think the whole thing about that source energy, and you seem to have found through your, I think through your commitment, dedication, desire, and knowledge, there's a way to connect to that source energy in a way that I've not, never known anybody be able to do that before. And yeah, just and I was actually going to ask, does your partner, can he tell when these things are happening to you? And you sort of said already that he can notice a sort of subtle difference or a large difference when you're receiving light, when you're having a vision, and you're. And does it always feel, if you have a vision, does it always feel that you're being welcomed, and it's a safe space, and it's not scary at all? It's a welcome, desired
Yes.
space.
It's so incredibly loving and welcoming, and it's joyous. It's the best experience I can imagine. Yeah.
One of the things that when people talk me questions or I talk to people and things, I think one of the biggest challenges that a lot of, and let's say couples for now, a lot of couples have is how they communicate. A lot of couples, whether they've been together, it could be 3 months, could be 3 months, could be 3 years, could be 30 years, could be longer. Sometimes it just don't communicate because we both might go out to work, we both might not work. One person comes home and goes to the gym, one person eats in their study, one person eats on the TV, one person watches sport, one person. So actually, just communication in general, we sort of passes us by, and then we perhaps have a sex life that feels very hasn't really changed or evolved in the last few years, whatever. We haven't sort of thought about, maybe try this, try that, whatever. And I think almost at that base level of how do we communicate so our relationships are more fulfilling, even before we get to the incredible work that you've done. How can people almost create that safe space to be able to communicate with one another and explain some of their thoughts, some of their desires that might have evolved over time, some of the things they love, some of the things they don't love anymore. Because it's kind of quite scary when you haven't really talked with somebody for a long time, suddenly to sort of say, right, And you don't want to scare the person off. So how do you
Yeah.
create that space to communicate?
It depends on the couple, really, how deeply shut down they are, or how if there's some connection there, or if there's no connection there, if there's a level of shame that is preventing, creating embarrassment, so that they are afraid to speak about what they want. One thing, there's a lot of things I can recommend here, so, so I hope I don't experience a logjam trying to get them out. One thing that my partner and I do that addresses what you were talking about of, having separate lives and busy, 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 is we have a devotional time set up for each other once a week. And we spend at least an afternoon together or longer. And it is dedicated to intimacy, sensuality, sexuality, without any agenda of we have to do this, but just creating the container for it, making the room look nice, putting on some music, getting dressed up for each other, stuff like that, that makes it a place, a separate space, a non-everyday space, a special step into a special time and space. And I've actually written a little handout that I offer as a freebie on my website that tells you how you can set up this space. So there's a page called Free Stuff on my website. And you can find this, it's called A Guide to Connection. So if people, it gives you basically how to get started into an intimate connection. If the communication is more challenged, like there's shame underlying it, or fear that the other person's going to think that they're crazy or perverted, or if there's challenges like that, sometimes it can be very helpful to work with someone else who can hold that container until people can hold it. Like I've had so many people say to me, I can't believe we're talking about this stuff, and it just seems normal to talk about it because you're so relaxed about it, And I'm like, yeah, this is beautiful, holy stuff we're talking about. It's not shameful. It's not bad. It's, and so there's that level of getting through the shame and embarrassment. And there's also some training that I have done lots of times with couples that to teach them how to give feedback about what they like and what they don't like in a way that the other person can receive. Because everybody's ego is so fragile around this. You're supposed to magically know what to do when nobody teaches you and nobody can tell you what they want. And that's like a major double bind, and so you're supposed to somehow figure out what this person likes when maybe they're shut down so much they're giving you no indication about what it is. Maybe they're not moving and not breathing and not saying, oh, that's good, or any of that, and so you have to feel normal about it, and before you can really communicate. And you have to know how to do it in a way that doesn't just say, you did that wrong. I didn't like that at all. Building, that's not stoking someone's self-esteem to do it that way.
Yeah, you just end up, you put your barriers there. I think of it a little bit like food. So if you've cooked somebody what you think is a really nice meal, and then at the end of it, they say, "Oh, I've never liked the way you do potatoes." So what? And it becomes straight away. It's a very negative thing, as opposed to sort of saying, "Yeah, I wonder what it'd be like to try yams sometimes, or sweet potato." You're not criticizing what's
Yeah,
already happened. You're just saying,
yeah,
maybe there's something there. Maybe there's a different flavor to this. But no,
yeah,
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 I totally agree. I think it's a good way of
yeah,
explaining it, for sure.
yeah. I had a partner a few years ago who said to me, after we'd been sexual for maybe a month or 6 weeks or something like that. He said, "You talk about sex more than anybody I've ever been with." And he had already said to me in a previous conversation, "You're the best lover I've ever had." And I'm like, well, these two things are related, honey.
Yeah, you just getting. It's just having an understanding that sex is life, really, I guess. And I think one of the big one of the big negatives that I think society has guided us towards is the belief that sex is only sex when it's penetration
Oh, yeah.
and orgasms achieved.
Yeah.
It and even the words foreplay is right. Here's something we do before we get to the main event. Here's the sort of
Right.
starter. Let's get through that
Yeah.
quickly. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can be, a sensual body on body massage for an hour can be amazingly sexual, but
Yeah.
there's been a penetration. You might not have orgasmed, as in you might not have ejaculated as such as a man, but it's almost that. Because I think from a very young age we talk about sex as sort of, have you done it yet? Have you
Right.
given it to her? They're all very almost aggressive
Mhm.
words for a physical act of putting something in somewhere, and it doesn't. Very, very different from the sort of, wand of light and the sacred space, which are very different words. And like you were saying, you can lie the wand of light on your heart, or you can just he can lay his head on your sacred space, and it's all that's one of the big challenges I think we have as a society, that sex is penetration. Porn,
Yeah.
porn is penetration. That's what
Mhm.
generally that's what you
Yeah.
see, which is so sad, because you people miss out on all of the beautiful, gentle, vibrant, exciting, calm, relaxing things that are
Yeah.
sex, which is not
Yeah.
penetration.
Yeah. And if it's only body parts rubbing each other, it gets boring after a while.
Yeah,
It gets really boring. It's just like, friction, same thing we did
yeah,
last time and the last time and the last time and the last time. But if you're having an energetic connection,
mm,
it's so varied. It's never the same.
yeah,
And it keeps your interest and keeps it exciting and energizing and wonder what's going to happen this time. No expectations, just openness, and that's so liberating. It removes all the pressure from
mm.
performance.
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but performance pressure is not an aphrodisiac to me.
Absolutely not. No, and it's not, because especially as
Yeah.
maybe as a man, and sometimes as we get older, we have problems being erect, or we have other challenges for physical and mental reasons, things, and we think, oh, I just okay, I'll pull up, I'll pull away now because I'm having problems there. Not thinking, well, that's so one tiny part of it. Yes, there are so many things that can be done to help that now, but you can still
Mhm.
have amazing sex without having an erection. It's
Yes,
it's,
absolutely.
it's very it's
Yeah.
we need more people to be like you and just talk about sex. The two things we don't talk about in life: sex and money. We just don't. We
Mhm.
just don't talk about them.
True.
It's so odd, really. So in the relationships you've had with different partners, have you always taken's a bad word? Have you always felt something different from each of them? Is it in a different experience with different people?
Yes. It is. It has been a very different experience with different people, and I think that each person has a gift.
Mhm.
Even like the man I spoke of earlier,
Mm.
who didn't have a connection, he gave me several gifts. He opened me up to outdoor exploration and adventure, and turned me on to rock climbing and skiing and all kinds of adventuresome activities that I'd never even considered doing. And that was expanding to me,
Mhm.
so even that relationship, which was probably the most painful,
Mm.
there was something there in it. And I've had several long-term relationships that have ended for various reasons, and each one of those had there's been a gift. There's been a gift, and the gift has been different with each person, because each person is a different person. They come to you bringing their who they are and what their interests are and what
Mm.
their wisdom is, their inner wisdom, and sharing that. And so, yeah, I I think that a lot of people talk about um, separating in or ending a relationship as a failure, but
Mm.
I think it's actually sometimes growthful.
Yeah.
That there's a natural evolution where you come together and you get the gifts that you have for each other, and then you're done with that. You've gotten what you need to get, and you mutually part. I'm very good friends with all my partners except for the one who died, and I'm friends with his spirit, but not his body anymore. But I have very, very good, loving relationships with my former partners, respectful relationships. I live on this land with
Mm.
one of my former partners, and we transitioned. We'd been together for 10 years when we bought this land, and soon after we moved here, 20 years ago, we transitioned out of being romantic partners, and we transitioned into being best friends. And we've lived on this land together for 20 years and best friends. And now my current partner lives here too, and the three of us are really good friends, and they get along really well. And I'm blessed. I've got a wonderful partner and a brother, you know, that I live with, so it's it doesn't have to be, if if you're loving through the whole transition,
Yeah.
if everything, love is the answer, whatever the question is.
I
I
think
say that to my
very.
clients so much. Love is the answer, no matter what the question. If the question is how do you transition out of a relationship that's run its course, love is the answer. Appreciation is the
Yeah.
answer. Not making them wrong, because the evolution of the relationship has reached a point where it's time to transition, not making them wrong for that, or not making you wrong for that either. Make love is the answer to yourself too.
I
Yeah.
think it's really interesting when you said one of the gifts that your early partner gave you was almost even more of a love of the outdoors, sort of hiking and all those exciting things. And I have a real very firm belief that we I hope it makes sense, that we are nature as opposed to there's nature and us. And I sometimes
Mhm.
think as humans we almost see nature as what's out there, as opposed to thinking that we are part of it. And I think if you do have that belief in source energy, it comes from everything around us. I think we talked before about the power of water and the beauty of the mountains and things. And I think there's something very special about being in nature,
Mhm.
feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, or the cold of the wind on your face, or the crispness of a winter day. What I just think I don't think there's a question. Yeah, sorry, I really have a very Yeah, I know I feel completely different when I'm outside
Yeah.
nature, and I'm
Yeah.
recognizing, not I'm sort of hurrying along, walking somewhere, but when I'm recognizing nature, and you live in such a beautiful, beautiful place, it must give you so much, the land and the
Yeah.
trees and the vistas that you have from your windows and from your
Mhm.
gardens. I think must be beautiful.
It is. I'm so blessed. And you know, I one of the things that I've been doing recently that is really fun
Mhm.
is I walk around the land every morning, and a lot of times there's sparkly things. Like in the winter, it's snowing and it snows, and then the sun comes out and the snow's all sparkly. Or
Yeah,
when it rains, the rain drops off the end of the fir tree branch and catches the sunlight and sparkles. Or
yeah.
the oak leaves when they're springtime fresh shimmer in the sunlight. And I've started using those moments of sparkly light to remind me that source energy is all around, all through, permeating this existence. The nature is good because it's so varied. It gives you those stimulations, but it's a reminder that there is something even more than nature. Nature
Mm,
is, and I love nature, but there's something even more that is
mm,
like it's all through these trees and this building and this house and this sky, and
mm.
it's everywhere, everywhere, every and the little sparkles of light are like source energies peeking out, going, I'm here, I'm behind all this, you know.
It's the same here. If I wake up early in the morning and sort of go to the garden and just look the sort of dew on the grass, or we have some beautiful that sounds silly, but sort of spiders' webs that just have beautiful little
Yes.
tiny sparkles on them, and you can sort of see the sun glinting, and they don't last very long. They're gone almost before most people are awake. But it's yeah, it's like, wow, that wasn't there yesterday. That's literally
Yeah.
all new from today. All the
Yeah.
atoms, whatever, have come together and created that in this
Yeah.
space for somebody to fall upon, and it's all there if you look for it. It's all there if you look for it. If
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of sacred sexuality, is it typically more effective in a monogamous as opposed to a polyamorous relationship, or is it something, because it feels so intense in a wonderful way that almost
Mm-hmm.
feels a connection between one person and one person, as opposed to sharing yourself with others?
Well, I've tried both.
Hmm.
I've been polyamorous and I've been monogamous, and I actually really prefer monogamy.
Hmm.
I love my partner, my last two partners I've been monogamous with, and I love that feeling of devotion to another person. There's a field of safety. It's
Hmm.
like an energetic nest that it's just so much simpler to
Hmm.
not deal with little jealousies and hurt feelings and upsets. And polyamory, um, it's useful because it brings up your stuff. If you want to have your stuff brought up and pay attention to it and heal it,
Hmm.
polyamory will do that.
Hmm.
And I did have a relationship like that, and but we spent all our time processing jealousy, and I was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, could we just be monogamous? It's so much simpler, and it's so it doesn't feel limiting at all to me. It feels like creating a special connection, honoring the depth of the devotion that we share
Hmm.
towards each other, and honoring the depth of the portal that we create when we come together, that
Mm.
takes us both into the spiritual realms. And that's most easily obtained if you feel safe and protected and loved and secure.
Yeah. Yeah, because I always think of polyamory in some ways as being, I'm not getting everything I want from one partner, therefore I look for another partner to add to that. But I think in your space, you have the ability and the desire to get everything you want from each other. You have the, like you said, you sort of when you felt yourself being so sensitive and it was difficult for the two of you, and thinking, well, everything's been fine. So what's going on? You really put the work in to break through that and go on to the next level. And I think that's that's much harder if you've got, right, so on Wednesday I've got to go and see Roger. It doesn't really,
I
really
know.
work well, does it? Really,
I know.
it must become
It takes,
more a thing about scheduling than anything else. Which
I
is very
know. It takes a while to drop in too.
Hmm.
You know, if like if 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 my partner and I have been apart for a while,
Mhm.
um, he says it takes about 3 days to really be able to make love with you. It takes about 3 days of just
Yeah,
you know, going for a hike, having a
yeah,
conversation, making a dinner together, you know,
yeah,
things like that. And, you know, connecting energetically. And it, you can't, if you're with a different person every night, you're just like constantly, yeet, yeet, yeet,
yeah,
yeet, 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 yeet.
yeah. I think your sort of rhythms have got to get back in sync, haven't they? So somebody's been away and they've been in a plane or whatever. Your rhythm changes a little bit, and I think when you come back with somebody, you're doing this as opposed to okay. And like I say, it takes a little bit of time to
Yeah.
get the talk at the same pace and feel the same things and just sort of harmonize again. So
Yeah.
yeah, trying to do that with more than one person, gosh,
I know.
that's too exhausting, really.
Yeah.
So if people have been kind enough to listen and they think, wow, psychosexuality, that really sounds like something I'd like to explore, what would be a first natural step for somebody to try and explore this sexuality in a very different way, in a very life affirming way?
Well, first thing would be to look at my free stuff
Mhm.
page on my website, in addition to the written handout that I spoke of earlier. I have some guided audio meditations that help to guide you into a deeper, intimate connection. They're beautiful music and my voice telling you to breathe and stuff like that. And if you really feel like you are wanting to go deep, I do offer a free sexual communion gateway session. It's a session that's anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes on the phone. And during that time, we'll explore what your challenges are in the area of sexuality and what you've tried already and what you want instead. We'll create a vision, and I'll give you my best recommendations for how to get started to achieve that vision. So that's I offer that free. There's no hard sell at the end or strings attached. I want to be of service, and if I can be of service by asking you to do further work with me, then I would invite you, but there'll never be a hard pressure from me. So,
And I'll put all the links to Satya's website and all the free stuff onto the show notes, because I had a good look, and it's fabulous, and it's very obvious that you're not in the best possible way, not a sort of hard commercial person. You're very much a giver to people, and you want, a lot of your satisfaction comes from, I'm sure, people coming up to you and saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe how my life's changed in the last month, 3 months, 6 months, a year. It must be so,
yeah.
that's almost a wonderful payback in a way, isn't it? I know it doesn't pay the bills,
Oh,
but
it is.
it's a very good, it's almost a
Ah,
spiritual, some of the
yes.
spiritual payback. It's topping up it's topping up
Right.
your spiritual container, really.
Yeah.
You've been very generous with your time, so thank you. The last question I wanted to ask you was, how important is time to yourself when you're alone and spending time with your own thoughts? How important is that time?
Well, for me, it's essential.
Mhm.
Um, um, I'm an introvert. Extroverts might not have the same answer, but I, I think that you have to be clear within yourself before you can connect with another person with clarity. If you're not clear within yourself, then you're bringing jumbled energy from other people, problems that you may be trying to work out. And, you know, different people have different styles.
Yeah.
Extroverts are a whole different being than I am. And so I have to claim being an introvert and say this is what's true for me. And I think it's true for a lot of people that your relationship with yourself is your first relationship. And if that's not solid,
Mhm.
then there's nobody home, there's nobody inside to connect with another person.
Yeah.
So that's my philosophy about that. It's you're your best lover. And actually those meditations I was talking about, the audio
Mhm.
meditations, I've designed them so that you can use them to connect with yourself, looking in a mirror.
Mhm.
And that's I've had people say they've had really profound experiences um, doing that and um, loving themselves, looking at themselves with love. So
Loves the answer.
love is the answer.
I was listening.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for your time. It's been, well, for me anyway, it's been a wonderful experience. So I
me
hope
too.
you can get a sense of how I felt going through this. So yeah, thank you so much, and I hope the
My
rest of your
pleasure.
week is full of joy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful host, and I really, really appreciate your open, warm attitude and your thoughtful
Oh,
questions.
thank you.
Yeah.